Let's apply what we've learned in Unit 1, Lesson 3. I will prompt you with 3 English sentences that you'll be able to create using the grammar from Unit 1, Lesson 3, but using vocabulary you haven't seen yet. Hopefully, you will be able to apply these new words to sentences immediately. The vocabulary I would like you to use are, now I'm going to be a little bit tricky here. I want you to use the word Finland in Korean, but of course you don't know what Finland is in Korean unless maybe you live in Finland. I'm just going to say that it sounds very similar to Finland, and I want you to try to write that in Korean. The word 대학교, which means university. I want you to realize that 학교, you already know this word, it means school. 대 is actually a Chinese, or based off of a Chinese character that means big. So this really just means big school. 숙제, which means homework. 가깝다, which means to be nearby. And 싫어하다, which is to dislike. And this is actually the opposite of the word 좋아하다, which you learned in Unit 1, Lesson 3. I'll give you 10 seconds to memorize these words, and we'll start making sentences using them. If you need more time, pause the video and get memorizing. All right, the first sentence I want you to try to create is, we go to Finland. Now, I want you to realize that we probably might want to say something like, we will go to Finland, or we went to Finland, and very rarely would you actually say, we simply go to Finland. Maybe you'd want to say, we go to Finland every year, or something like that. But right now, we're just focusing on this simple sentence of, we go to Finland. I'll give you 10 seconds, and you can start now. All right, the subject of the sentence is we, so we're going to have to put 우리 there for we. Now, that's the subject, so we're going to put the subject particle 는. We could put 가 if we want to, and the sentence would have a slightly different nuance, but similar meaning and essentially the same translation. Now, I tricked you, or I gave you a bit of a challenge to see if you could write Finland in Korean, and this is how you would write it. It's 핀란드. Now, this, to me, this doesn't sound like Finland exactly, but that's the closest way that you can write it in Korean, and that is the actual word for Finland in Korean. It's Finland. Finland. It's, you might be wondering, well, how is it this an F? And I sort of know that this letter is like a P, but there is no other similar sound to an F in Korean. So a lot of the times when you sort of Koreanize Fs, it often is this letter here. So anyways, this says 우리는 핀란드. Now, Finland is the place in which we go, so I need to put the location marking particle A on there. Now I simply need to put go, and we learned the word go, or how to use it, in Lesson 3, and it's just 가다. Now, of course, I want you to realize, as I've said many times, 가다 is not conjugated in this case. If you want to conjugate it, you'd have to learn how to do that in Lessons 5 and Lesson 6 and Lesson 7. But one way that you could conjugate it is you could say 간다, or you could say 가요, or you could simply say 가, or you actually could say 갑니다. Those are all possible ways that you can conjugate 가다, but this right now is not conjugated, but you'll learn that in later lessons. Let's say you decided to put this conjugation on 가다 here, and I wanted to say this sentence, because I feel weird saying this sentence because it's not something that I would say, but let's say you put 갑니다 on here instead of 가다, you'd say 우리는 핀란드에 갑니다. The next sentence I would like you to try is, that university is nearby. I'll give you 10 seconds, and you can start now. Okay, the subject of the sentence is, well, it's the university, but specifically it's that university. So we're going to have to put 그 there. I could put 저 if it's a university that I'm looking at that's far away, but in this case, it'd probably make more sense if it was 그. Now, again, the word for university is 대, which means big, based on the Chinese characters, and 학교, which you already know. That's the subject of the sentence, so I'm going to have to put 가 or 는 there. Now, a very common mistake that Korean learners often do is they try to put this is in these types of sentences in Korean. Now, you already know that the word for is in Korean is ida. And that could be is or are or were or was or any of those to be words. But really what I have here is I just have a subject and I have an adjective. And in English we use is, but I actually don't need to include that in my Korean sentence. All I need to include is the adjective itself. And as we learned before, to say to be nearby, all I need to say is 가깝다. So I can say 가깝다. Now, unlike with kada up here, because kada is a verb, this is actually not a possible conjugation. This is the dictionary form of to go, but it's actually not something that you can use in a sentence. But adjectives aren't the same as verbs, and actually this is a possible conjugation that you could use. So you could actually say this and it would be properly conjugated. Another possible conjugation that you could use would be maybe something like 가까워. And there are other ones that I'll write, but this gets a little bit confusing because 가깝다 is actually an irregular adjective, and you can see that this final letter here, the B sound, actually gets eliminated. But that gets a little bit too complicated, and we'll talk about that in Unit 1, Lesson 7, where I talk about irregulars. The next sentence I would like you to try is, I dislike homework. I'll give you 10 seconds, and you can start now. All right, the subject of the sentence is I, so I can start by putting that there. Let me just put my equal sign up here. That was bugging me. I noticed that. It's I, so I'm going to put, I could put na or I could put ta. It doesn't matter. So na, that's the subject, so I'm going to put nun, or again, I could put nega if I wanted to. Now, I need to indicate that I dislike homework. Homework is going to be the object of the sentence. And as we learned in this video, the word for homework is 숙제. 숙제. That's the thing that I dislike. So because it's the object of the sentence, I need to put the object particle 를 on 숙제. Now I need to indicate that I dislike it. Now let's imagine that I like homework. I can't imagine what person would like homework, but imagine you did like homework. You would just say 나는 숙제를, and you would want to say 좋아하다. Again, that's not conjugated. You could conjugate it into some ways if you wanted to. They could look similar to this. But that's not what I want to say. I want to say that I dislike homework. That I dislike homework. And the word for to dislike is 싫어하다. So I want to put that word in there. Now this sentence reads 나는 숙제를 싫어하다. Now, because this is a verb, as I said up here with 가다, you can't actually just use this 싫어하다 in a sentence. It's a verb, and so therefore this is not a possible conjugation, whereas this is an adjective, and it is a possible conjugation. So you'd have to conjugate this, and you'll learn about this in later lessons, but one possible conjugation could be 싫어한다, or it could be 싫어해요, or something like that. There's all these different conjugations that you could use that you'll learn about later. Well, that was fun. I hope you learned a lot.